Right, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. This is Magnus Nielsen, Lord Londonstone. And here I am again. I'm right back now in the centre of London. And as I explained to you in a previous video, the centre of London is marked by the statue of King Charles I, which you can just about see now directly in front of you. And that statue stands on the exact site of old Charing Cross that was built there in 1290 and pulled down by the soldiers of Oliver Cromwell in 1650 something or other. I've forgotten the exact date. But this area is called Charing Cross. It was once the site of a village of that name, or at least the village of Charing, and it was one of what I call the 1 mile villages. It was located exactly 1 mile from Ludgate, the western gate in the Roman city of London. So you marched 1 mile, you'd arrive here. And there was a village here, as I say, in very early medieval times, certainly around about the time of the Conqueror. But before that, there was a settlement here that was built after the Romans left Britain in the year 410. And we were then invaded by the Angles and the Saxons, particularly the Saxons in this part of the country. And they built a settlement here just outside to the west of the Roman city, and they called it Londonwick. And archaeologists who are digging in this area dig up traces of the remains of this Anglo-Saxon settlement from time to time. After the year, 886, King Alfred of Wessex ordered that all the people who lived in Londonwick had to pull up their stumps, as it were, and then head back to the Roman defences to protect them from the Viking invasions that were taking place. So this place was deserted for a while, but as you can see, it was repopulated around about the 10th, 11th centuries and so forth. So what I'm going to do today, first of all, let me just show you where we are. We're in Charing Cross. So this is the centre of London. This is Trafalgar Square with Nelson's Column, which you can see, and I've spoken about this, and also about the National Gallery, and I've done a video on that as well. So we're getting on well with the videos. Over here we have Northumberland Avenue. We've actually seen Northumberland Avenue from the other end, and this was the site of Northumberland House. A special house had been built here for the Dukes of Northumberland. Well, actually, to be strict, it wasn't. The Dukes of Northumberland moved in here sometime afterwards, but the house was built here in the early 1600s, and then the Dukes of Northumberland moved in and took it over for their own. And it was a very palatial, prestigious place, and it was pulled down in 1874 to make the way for Northumberland Avenue to get access to Victoria Embankment. Okay, so what I propose to do now is make my way up this thoroughfare known as the Strand, or just Strand. Strand is Anglo-Saxon, or if you know German, you'll know that Strand is the word for beach. And very simply, it was the place where the tides of the River Thames reached their maximal extent. So this was a good place, as I say, to if you're building a settlement here, a high tide, you could take all the merchandise that was being brought into what was Londonwick in those days. But anyway, this is Strand, so it retains its Anglo-Saxon name. And what I'm doing is I'm now just moving from here away from Charing Cross, and I'm moving in an easterly direction, in the general direction of the historic city of London with St Paul's Cathedral and all that. But before we get there, let's have a look out here on the left-hand side. What you see here is South Africa House. It's the site of the High Commission of South Africa, and it was built in the 1930s on the site of Morley's Hotel, which is a very famous hotel in the Victorian period. It's where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who wrote the Sherlock Holmes stories. Actually, he was writing The Hound of the Baskervilles at the time, and I've told you already about the Northumberland Hotel, which is further down on Northumberland Avenue. So, what we'll do now is just move a bit further forward, and I'm going to take you up here. This is the Strand. Way back in the 1100s or 1200s, it's actually really the beginning of the 1200s that this place began to be settled. You had the Roman city of London and the medieval city, of course, after the Norman conquest. And then as London grew, it gradually extended itself westward. So people were building houses along this road, which, as I say, led out of Ludgate into the west. And around about the sort of early 1200s, you had many important houses down here, houses of very important people at least. And I'll be talking about the site. Many of them, of course, are gone now, but what we're going to do is, as we go forward, I will show you the Charing Cross station. Now, this station here was built in 1864, and it connects central London with the port of Dover, and it was the station where King George V met the American President Woodrow Wilson in November of 1918 to discuss the aftermath of the First World War. Oh, and here, this again is the model, not the real thing, of course, the model of old Charing Cross. See if we can get a better view of it through the railings. I don't think we can, actually. Too bad. Anyway, that's old Charing Cross. Right. Now, as I go forward, across the way, we have this rather splendid building designed by John Nash, who was one of the really great architects, one of the great British architects, who was King George IV was his patron, and that's how he flourished. Now, this particular building is called Coutts Bank. Now, in England we have what we call the high street banks, and these are Barclays, Lloyds, NatWest, HSBC. Those are the banks that most ordinary people use. But if you're very, very rich and very, very important, and certainly if you're rich, I think you have to keep a deposit of £1 million in sort of money to sort of throw around in your current account. They won't just take anybody. You have to have a lot of money. This is where King Charles III has a bank account. And from time to time, if you're standing around here, you will see somebody coming from the palace in a pony and not a pony and trap, but in a little coach to come and discuss the financial matters, any financial business that the royalty has. So the royalty has been connected with this bank. There's been a bank here since 1692. What's always called Coutts Bank. It was set up by a man called Campbell, but I think Campbell had a daughter, and then it was the daughter who married Coutts. Oh, here on the right hand side, ladies and gentlemen, in case you miss it, this is a McDonald's hamburger restaurant, of which there are a great many in London and indeed throughout the world. Now, we can't go too much farther because now we are on the site of York House. You wouldn't think so to look at it, I know, but there we are. This was built in 1220, or the York House was built in 1227 for the Bishop of Norwich, so it had been called Norwich House first of all, and then when Wolsey moved in here prior to the building of the Whitehall Palace, he called it York House. That would have been in the early 1500s. Later in the 1500s, a family with the surname Bacon moved here, and the son of the family was Francis Bacon, who was the philosopher, a very important man. He was born here in 1561, and it was basically he who revolutionized the system of logic and led the scientific revolution that was taking place after the Renaissance. So that is the home of the birth of Sir Francis Bacon, Lord Verulam, being a very important person, especially during the reign of James the First. Also, after Bacon, you had George Villiers. The Duke of Buckingham lived there for a while, and I think I've told you all about that in previous videos. How you have George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham. Now here, worth pointing out to you, this is Zimbabwe House. Now you've seen already South Africa House. This is Zimbabwe House, which is not very far from South Africa. In fact, they touch each other really, but it wasn't originally built for Zimbabwe, or the Rhodesians for that matter. It's called Rhodesia House before that. It was built for the British Medical Association in 1907, and if you look very carefully, you might not be able to see it here, but there are statues sort of halfway up carved by a man called Epstein of people in the nude, which was quite a shocking thing to have statues of naked people in those days, and they caused no amount of moral outrage, and so somebody was sent up to scale the walls with a hammer and chisel and knock off all the offending bits and pieces. So those are highly damaged statues. Over on the left, oh no, the bus has got in the way. Rats. Oh. That is the old, you've seen Coutts there on the left. This building right in front of us, again, this is designed by John Nash, is Charing Cross, or was Charing Cross Hospital. Charing Cross Hospital. It's actually the new Charing Cross Hospital has moved out. It's now in Fulham. So we'll carry on, and as we go forward, I said we had all these important people way back in the 1200s who were building houses here. We had the house of the Bishop of Durham, Durham House. Other important people lived here. Simon de Montfort, the man who set up Parliament way back in the 1200s, he lived here for a while. And so did Sir Walter Raleigh. Now, Sir Walter Raleigh was a favourite of Queen Elizabeth I. It was Sir Walter Raleigh who sailed off across the Atlantic in 1585 to set up the colony of Roanoke in what is now North Carolina. I think I've spoken about that before because he's buried in the Church of St. Margaret at Westminster. But anyway, this was the site. We've got Burger King here. And this was the site of Durham House. And Walter Raleigh used to live here as well. It was said that he was the man, of course, who brought the idea of tobacco back to England, and that was something completely new. And when he was sitting in his chair, smoking his pipe, his servant threw water over him because they thought he was on fire, thought he'd caught fire. So that's the story about Sir Walter Raleigh and Durham House. Right, Durham House Street. So I'm still moving bit by bit further forward. Up the Strand, which as you can see is quite a busy street. It's got some shops here, we've got theatres, and one or two other important hotels, of course. Now this is Adam Street, and it's just worth popping down here because we've been here before. In fact, we were here in the last video, but there's one or two things I missed, and what I would like to do now is take you across the street to show you number 10, which is an exact replica of number 10 Downing Street. So you can't get into Downing Street because there are big railings behind it to stop you from doing that. But if you want to know what the door of number 10 Downing Street looks like, this is it. Okay, right, let's move on.
I know there's a good Indian.
Right, so what I propose to do is just walk a little way further forward, just to give you an idea of what there is in the Strand. When I get right to the very end, I'll do another video which I will walk back on the opposite side of the street, and then I shall walk from east to west. But anyway, this is number 80, the Strand, and it was once Salisbury House, the home of the Bishop of Salisbury and also the Marquis of Salisbury, now known, or once known as the Cecil Hotel, which you see here. That's no longer the case. There's Cecil Hotel, or even Shelmeck's House, not anymore. Up here we have a plaque which commemorates the Royal Air Force, which was set up here in 1918. So that's interesting. Right, come out again. The coal hole. We should come back here a bit later on.
Yeah,
Nicholson's a great British pub. Now here, this is important, ladies and gentlemen, listen up, because this building, which I'm going to show you here, this is the Savoy Theatre, and this was built in 1881, and when it was opened it was the first building in the world to be entirely lit by electric light. 1881, London. And here we have the access road to the Savoy Hotel. It's built on the Palace of the Savoy, which I'll talk a bit more about later on, but you can see Count Peter of Savoy, that's his statue up there, and it's one of the really smart hotels in London, which was built in 1889. It had 200 bedrooms when it first opened, and it was noted for the fact that, of course, it didn't have toilets and bathrooms attached to each bedroom, but there were a high proportion of bathrooms. You didn't have to wait in a long queue. That was its great selling point, that you could actually get a bathroom fairly easily at the Savoy Hotel. That was built in 1889, and you'll notice also something rather strange about this. The access road is the only place in the United Kingdom where people drive on the right-hand side of the road. Right, so there we go. Why is that? Well, the thinking was that it was easier for carriages to drop people who are going to the theatre off at the door of the theatre by having this rather curious manoeuvre, then driving up and then turning around and coming out again. So that's why that is. Okay, well, we'll move on. Simpson's on the Strand is a very famous English restaurant, Victorian. And it was here that they standardized the chessmen and the chess pieces. It's a chess club. You can see the chess pieces and the pawns over the doorway. That's because they actually, before that, you could have chessmen any design you liked, but after a while they thought this was silly, so they standardized, and this was the place where they standardized the shape of the chessmen. Down here, over on the right hand side, Savoy buildings, we have one of these things which says this way was called Fountain Court until 1883 from the Fountain Tavern, which stood on this site. Right, in this court in the 18th century stood the Fountain Tavern, where the political opponents of Sir Robert Walpole met, using the title of Fountain Club. Also the Coal Hole, the meeting place of the Wolf Club, of which about 1826. Edmund Kean was also a leading member. Edmund Kean was a very famous actor in the 1820s. Not many people know about him now. But anyway, we're still walking along the Strand, and we're going past the site of the Savoy Palace, which, again, you know, it was purchased, or it was built, I should say, in the early 1200s by a courtier of King John, the same man who signed the Magna Carta. And over the course of time, it was given to Peter, the Count of Savoy. Savoy is a part of northwestern Italy. He was the father-in-law of the Queen, and he lived there, and it was in the most splendid luxury. The house itself was eventually taken over by John of Gaunt, who was the younger brother of King Edward III. And this would have been in the late 1300s. And then it was attacked by a man called Wat Tyler in 1381, and the Savoy Palace was completely burnt, destroyed. But little bits of it remain, and I'll go and show you what does remain. So after the destruction of the Palace of the Savoy, King Henry VII rebuilt it as a hospital, and it was a hospital for many, many years. And you also had a chapel here called the Chapel of the Savoy, and it enjoys the same status as Westminster Abbey and St George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. It's what's called a royal peculiar. It means to say that the Bishop of London has no jurisdiction over it, and the jurisdiction comes directly under the monarch, and that would be King Charles III at the present time. It's also the chapel, here we go, the chapel of the Royal Victorian Order. Now that's an order of honour which was created by Queen Victoria for her diplomats. Here, what does it say? The King's Chapel of the Savoy, putting people at the heart of the Christian witness. The chapel is the last surviving building of a hospital founded by Henry VII in 1512 for the poor and needy. It forms part of the Savoy estate belonging to the Duchy of Lancaster. Now the Duchy of Lancaster, again, that's another name for the King. The King is always the Duke of Lancaster. And even the Queen, when she was alive, she was known as the Duke of Lancaster. And the rents from this area, which were quite considerable, went to the Crown. The work in the chapel community is to practice hospitality, serving and praying for all those who work and reside within the manor precincts of the Savoy. And the Chapel of the Royal Victorian Order, instituted in 1896, is awarded at the discretion of the Sovereign. Right, this is Savoy Hill, and once upon a time this was the headquarters. Once upon a time, 100 years ago, 1926. Yeah, 1926. This is where the British Broadcasting Company, as it was then known before it became the British Broadcasting Corporation, hung out. And here, oh, this is the gate to the chapel, and it's closed at the moment, which is too bad. Oh. Savoy steps. So this is the rear end of the Savoy Hotel. As I say, one of the really plush places to come and to lodge if you've come to London. Savoy Hotel. And we're just going to make our way around. We've been here before, I know, but I just want to take you around again, just to wind up. We're making our approach now towards Embankment Gardens, and I'll be turning around to the right. This is the, if you like, the back end of the Savoy. This was all added in 1904. This is an extension to the hotel. And that would take us, if we were to go down here on the left hand side, back into the Embankment Gardens. Now I've already given you a video on the Embankment Gardens, so I won't repeat myself. So we'll just make our way forward and then turn again round to the right and come back up on the Strand. How about that? That is a rickshaw. Welcome to London. I've never been on one of those. Actually, personally, I think they look rather expensive for what they are, but you know, a matter of taste, I suppose. Right, turn around to the right. So we'll just round up here. What I turn back to the car. What I wanted to do here, maybe was point out to you this little curiosity, which is a lamp. It's a sewer gas lamp. I think I may have mentioned to you that well, I'll say it again anyway, even if I have, that the Embankment Gardens, who had the sewers of Bazalgette under them, as well as the Underground Railway, and so the sewers gave off sewer gas, which is not very pleasant to smell, and the idea was that the gas would be sort of drawn up That's actually not sewer gas. Some people get the idea that sewer gas actually lights up if you put a flame to it. It doesn't. It's what's happening is that's a gas lamp. That's an old Victorian gas lamp, and the sewer gas is drawn up that column right up to the very top. Anyway, that's one of the old curiosities of London, that. And this is Carting Lane. And we're at the rear end of the Savoy Hotel, and we're now making our way back up to the Strand. And I've been doing this now for half an hour. Time flies. I'm always surprised just how quickly the time goes by when I make these videos. But anyway, today is Saturday the 24th of January. It's a lovely day. It's nice. I wouldn't say it's a cloudless sky, but it is bright nevertheless. Now down here, Savoy Theatre. What do they tell us about the Savoy Theatre? Opened in 1881, the Savoy Theatre was the first public building in the world to be lit throughout by electricity. What did I tell you? And so what we have to do now is make our way up these stairs to get to the beach, the Strand. Anyway, the Coal Hole. This is one of the old characteristic pubs of London. They serve fish and chips. Right, we're back on the Strand again. And so just to round up, let me have a look. Here we've got this little notice here which says the original coal hole was located in a cellar in Fountain Court, a few yards from our present establishment. Its name seems to have derived from the coal heavers who worked nearby on the River Thames. Edmund Kean, one of the biggest theatrical stars of his day, founded the Wolf Club at the Coal Hole. The story was that it was established for oppressed husbands who were not allowed to sing in the bath. The reality was an excuse for heavy drinking in the company of loose women. Kean collapsed on stage in 1833 and died later. The old Coal Hole was demolished in 1889, and this building opened in 1904, briefly called the New Strand Wine Lodge. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me come back to you. Wow. So thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. I've got more. I've only just started really, but I've now made a number of videos, and what I'm just going to do is add this one to all the other ones, just for the sake of completeness. And having, as I said, gone all the way up the Strand one way, I'm going to come all the way back down again later on, when I get the chance. That's it. I will say, over and out for the time being, please like, share and subscribe, and leave any comments down in the comment box below, please, letting me know what you thought of this, or what you think I'm doing generally, and what you'd like me to do. I'm always open to any ideas you may have. So anyway, this is Magnus Nielsen, Lord Londonstone, now signing out. Bye bye.